to stakeholders, to the officials, and everybody in the meeting. I think let's bow our head for the meeting to be officially opened. Amen. Thank you very much, honorable members and officials.
Recording in progress.
Honorable members, the meeting is officially opened. Knowing that we just came up from the day of the Human Rights Day, and what makes me to be much more happier than before is that you could see that the women are commemorating this day as if it has happened yesterday. And I was very, very happy about the repatriation of one of the women, the woman who sacrificed their lives. And we know that she has been repatriated to Nelson Mandela of Gqeberha. She is gonna be given the honor that she deserves by sacrificing. The other one that I think touched me a lot is the letter that has been written by one other woman from Eastern Cape, Mthatha, who is a doctor and who has been abused in her marriage for about 15 years. As a result, even the children, in fact, one of her child was sending a message that is requesting help from other women. And OR Tambo Women or Women's Caucus is taking up the matter. We hear other stories from other provinces that women are still abused, but we can't throw a towel. Let's soldier on, honorable members, and assist our communities and our children and our women that are being abused. Honorable members, let me not take your time. I know for a fact that by 12:30 we have to rush for a bus, but we will try not to leave things untended. We'll make it a point that we deal with everyone in the agenda. Lindy, can you also assist us with the roll call so as to know who's absent, who's present, and then we can also include that with apologies.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, members and the Minister and officials in attendance. Chair, today is the 22nd of March, which is the last meeting for this session before the workshop next week. Chair, I wish to confirm the following members that are present. It's you, Member Mvana. I have Member Abrahams. I have Member Manganye. I have Member Masango in attendance. I have Member Mare. I have Member Bilangulu. Chair, I've received an apology from Member Van der Merwe, who's in Durban with Prince Buthelezi. They are receiving a delegation from Nigeria. Also, there is also another apology from the Deputy Minister, who won't stay for the duration of the session due to other commitments, but she's with us. Thank you very much. Those are the apologies and members who are in attendance. And I wish to confirm that we are a quorum, Chair. We can take decision in this meeting. Thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Lindy. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Minister and the Deputy Minister in our presence. I've already acknowledged the presence of our stakeholders. Can we also give over to Mr. Nkunu?
Sorry, Chair, did she mention I'm also present? I didn't hear saying that.
Member Aris?
Okay, I thought you are still on the shutdown.
I've
you
mentioned
very
Member
much.
Aris.
Oh,
We
I
can do
thought
it
we are
again,
still in
Chair.
the shutdown. Yes, yeah, we are welcome, and you have been mentioned. Okay, thank you very much, Lindy. Let's give over to Lindy, acting DJ. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good morning to yourself and honorable members in the meeting. Indeed, we are here as the department together with our portfolio to ensure that we're able to take the presentation forward through accordingly. Just to indicate, Honorable Chair, that myself and I know the Minister may be intermittent in the meeting because we have a sexual reproductive justice conference that we are participating and leading today, which, by the way, is actually a very important aspect to this piece of work that we are presenting to you, today. It really deals with the ability for people to be able to make their own informed choices around their sexuality. And so that becomes an important aspect given the context of this work. So I just wanted to indicate that we're here. In the event that I am sort of out, Brenda will lead the team, but I will be intermittent in at least until about 10:30, 11 or so, and then it will be with you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Linton. Okay, let's get the agenda from Lindy. Thank you very much, Lindy. Apologies, we're done with that one. Let's go to the adoption of the agenda. The only item here is the briefing by the Department of Social Development on the policy on linking of social grant beneficiaries. That's there. Otherwise, the one of the overview by the Minister is always there at all times. I appreciate that, Lindy, you have put it in the agenda so as not to include it as amended, as an amendment. And then we'll deal with the pink paper, that is the minutes. I think we've got how many? 3 sets of minutes that we have to deal with. Can we then adopt the agenda, honorable members? I don't see.
I declare Nadia
Honorable.
moving, Chair,
Okay.
for the adoption of the, yes.
Honorable Mangan is also moving. Honorable Bridget's hand is up.
I would like to second the adoption of the minutes, Chair, of the agenda, sorry, Chair. Thank you.
Agenda. Thank you very much, Honorable Masango. Can we then proceed by requesting the Minister to do her political overview? And we know that it's Wednesday, it's cabinet meeting. She will definitely be released at time, but she will inform us when does she want to be released. Thank you ever so much. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, Chair.
Oh, who's that? It's the DM.
Yes, Chair.
Yes,
The
I would
voice
love
is
to also
like
be.
it's DM.
I would love to also be excused, as I would like to join the Minister when she opens the session.
Okay, thank you very much, DM. I think Lindy has already put forward your apology. You will be excused, DM, whenever the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minister, you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. A very good morning to everybody. I would request that I keep my video off because I'm on the road. I don't want to be getting cut or something of that sort. I wish to thank you yet again for giving the department and the ministry, myself and the DM, the opportunity to participate here. And also I'd like to add to your earlier inputs, Chairperson, about the women who are still struggling, who are still finding themselves in abusive environments and relationships. And would like to say, Chair, that it's very encouraging, the work that is being done, and not only by yourselves as oversight on our department, but the men and women who actually are getting up every day and trying to do something within our communities to help us end this scourge of gender-based violence. And I also wish to thank you for raising the issues of human rights, because women's rights are also human rights. And I am sure that as we collectively work together, as South Africans in general, not just government, we will be able to deal with this to end gender-based violence and femicide. So to the honorable members of the portfolio committee who are here, I also am very much aware of the work that the honorable members do in their constituencies, and it's also very appreciated. So to the Acting Director General, Mr. Mchunu, senior managers and officials of DSD portfolio here present today. I think today, if I'm not mistaken, we're also marking World Social Work Day. I hope I'm correct by that. And also to indicate, obviously, that the Department of Social Development plays a very important role in this area. And we are very conscious also of the social workers who were trained, some of them by ourselves, who still are not getting employment. I've always indicated, Chairperson, that if we have to deal with the social ills, part of what we need to do is, as a department and as government in general, is really to employ more and more social workers so that we can have them able to reach out house to house, street to street, and community to community to help us and prevent some of these challenges that the social ills that we have. So today, the department will be briefing on the draft policy on the integration of children's grants with other government services. Today's presentation, Chairperson and honorable members, speaks to how the department intends to contribute to the resolutions of a wider and preeminent challenge that South Africans are experiencing, namely a fragmented and uneven service delivery environment. This is owing to the silo approach to service delivery that is entrenched in large parts of the state. And I'm also hoping, Chairperson, that the silo, I can, in a way, though, indicate that since I arrived in the department itself pushed itself into a portfolio. It's still not yet perfect. Some of the staff of the officials are still not really pulling it up together as far as the portfolio is concerned, so that we can work collectively together and cooperate and coordinate properly. But we keep pushing, we keep working, because that's the reason why we are here. Consequently, the draft policy on the integration of children's grants with other services is introducing practical citizen-level solutions to the undesirable challenge that the people have been experiencing to date. Let me remind us that the proper context from which the draft policy should be read is priority 4 of the medium-term strategic framework 2019-2024, in which we aim to consolidating the social wage through integrating and coordinating reliable and quality basic services. In return, this priority is a contribution towards the National Development Plan 2030. Thus, the MTSF articulates the challenges that the draft policy is designed to undo in the following terms, and I open quote: indeed, beneficiaries of social insurance and state-funded social assistance are subjected to tedious, bureaucratic, cumbersome, and various means tests before accessing the social entitlement. This is often results in the unintended exclusion, thus defeating the human rights approach of social security. And I close quote: where we are faced with an ecosystemic challenge, such as the one that the MTSF has characterized, the practical approach to affecting cumulatively meaningful, lasting, and system-wide changes to the environment that sustains the silo mentality is to start somewhere. In our instance, we are proposing that the government's quality of life improving services should be integrated with children's grants. Undoubtedly, Chairperson, intentionally integrating the basic services that are rendered by the Department of, for instance, basic education, health, higher education, science, and innovation. Chair, there's a disturbance.
No, Mina, I've requested to be excused as soon as we start that side.
There's a disturbance, Chairperson, and I don't know who is that.
Yo, my apology, Minister, it's me. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
My sincere apology.
All right.
Chairperson, I was saying, undoubtedly, intentionally integrating the basic services that are rendered by the Department of, for instance, basic education, health, higher education, science and innovation, home affairs, human settlements, water and sanitation, justice and correctional services, and sports, arts and culture into the life cycle of children who are beneficiaries of our children's grant will profoundly enhance the quality of their life experiences. Secondly, investing in an extensive data management infrastructure by which government departments would, as a matter of conducting business, share administrative data across the traditional mandates is a necessary central nervous system by which the quality of life of the people will be improved. Consolidating the social wage through integrating and coordinating government's reliable and quality basic services from which grant beneficiaries can benefit will deeply enrich their later life social and economic prospects. This approach is necessary because human capabilities cannot be realized by cash alone. And I want to repeat this, Chairperson, because one of the issues that I consistently also repeat to SASSA and NDA, and especially with SASSA, is to say that their responsibility must not be narrowed down only just to a distribution of cash. They also, working with us, have to look at this very statement that I've just said now, so that they can also be able to utilize the numbers that they have and be able to use it for communication in the improvement of the lives of our people. Intelligently identifying efficiencies throughout the ecosystem and utilizing the benefits of data infrastructure will unlock these human capabilities and translate them into greater economic benefits. With the intentionality of this scale explicitly built into the draft policy, the department is practically pioneering the creation of a conducive environment upon which all government services that are designed to qualitatively and positively change people's life experience can be configured and continuously adjusted to the changing conditions. Accordingly, the draft policy is necessary and transformative, and a transformative step to 1, to close known policy and service coverage gaps, 2, in the reconstruction and recovery of our society and economy, and 3, towards effecting a common prosperity throughout society, particularly to realize the productive contributions of sections of our society that have otherwise remained prone to growing vulnerabilities. Having consulted the draft policy with the social development sector, the department intends to, in the next financial year, initiate the necessary cabinet processes for its institutionalization. And we know, Honorable Chairperson, that the sooner we do that, due to the fact that the cabinet processes also sometimes are very prolonged, and we are also conscious of the fact that we are on the last leg of the sixth administration, and therefore it would be important for us, together with the department, together with a parliament, to assist us in the process. Honorable Chair, with your permission, please allow me to call upon the department to render a presentation on the draft policy on the integration of children's grant with other government services. I thank you, Chairperson, and I'm wishing everybody a good day.
Thank you very much, Minister. We also wish you to a very good day. Over to you, Department. Otherwise, the Minister has laid the ground, the soft ground for you to present. Thank you ever so much.
Okay. Thanks very much, Honorable Chair. And once again, good morning to honorable members. I'm going to ask that the Secretariat allow Maureen to share the presentation on the screen so that we can make reference to it. But as we go to the presentation, I thought, let me just put some context to what we will deal with also in the context of the presentation. And I suppose also just drill down into some practical aspects, which the presentation will speak to as well. Now, I think it's important to also just highlight that as a country, we have, I believe, clearly demonstrated a continuing commitment to the development of a robust social security system, which is cemented in our country's transition to a rights-based approach, which, of course, in '94 was a central focus. And I think you can see that through our various policy mechanisms and interventions that we've championed it as a department, and notwithstanding the fact that we still have some challenges that persist in terms of social needs, etc., which in itself calls for much more to be done. This focus on a rights-based approach is what we firmly base our foundation on when we put forward our various interventions and policies in the main, especially when it comes to the issues of social security and, of course, welfare services. Now, the country's road to a more comprehensive social protection system has been quite rapid, in some aspects fragmented, but at the end of the day, we are trying to ensure that we have significant coverage of all vulnerable groups, including children in the main. Although we have provided various services aimed at poverty and vulnerability of children, the policies, the programs, and systems are compartmentalized, English, and often have different interventions. The services are provided in isolation by different government departments, as you would know. And of course, although we use the life cycle approach, it does not. It does so without rather integrating programs into a comprehensive system. So, for example, you would talk about conditionalities. Should we have conditions for children to get grants, such as should they be in school, should they be immunized, etc., etc. Of course, that's an ideal situation, but it presupposes, it is to get to that space, you sort of have to make sure that all other relevant departments are doing what they ought to do in order to do that. For example, you expect that there would be clinics in every city, in every town throughout the Republic, to ensure that you're able to then do that, to ensure that you have this comprehensive sort of system that you want. So the biggest policy gap is that the policies, programs, and systems are not always well coordinated as interventions, and therefore our beneficiaries do not realize the full impact of these services. And I think the integration of systems across government, which the minister has spoken to, and the synchronization of data is one of the most important things that we're also trying to do through this policy. And of course, you would be aware, honorable members, that social grants directed at children make up a significant share of the country's social protection system, with just over, I think, 13.2 million children in receipts of children's grants, and of course the positive impacts are well documented, notwithstanding the fact that the child support grant is still the lowest of all other grants that is being received. It doesn't even get to the food poverty line. So this draft policy that we are talking to today really emphasizes the economic empowerment and equity-based impact that stems from social grants targeting vulnerable children. Would only be further strengthened through structured and systems linking of children's services. And the process would allow for the achievement of broader objectives and increased synergies in impacts and program operations. Of course, service synergies with social grants promote sustainable growth and strengthens impacts and is also focused towards upward mobility. Now, Chair, you may recall that in 2016, I think we reported on this sometime last year. In 2016, we conducted a study on the feasibility of formally linking the child support grant to additional services of government, and the study made a series of recommendations in respect of the need to undertake reforms in relation to all children's grants through better policy and program linkages that will improve the impact of interventions aimed at the child well-being. I know that members would say that was 2016. We are now in 2023. And of course, we are conscious of the fact that the policy process takes a long time. However, as a department, we've committed to ensure that we try and move with great speed through this policy process. And of course, notwithstanding the fact that there are dependencies in other state institutions like Justice and Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, through which the processes have got to follow through. But I think we are really trying to move with absolute speed to try and make sure that we push this policy forward. So the draft policy really emphasizes the need to integrate social welfare services, education, and health in the main within the cash transfers context. And I think through also improved access and cooperation alongside some aspects of economic support. And I think to generate these synergies, policies, and legislative strategies and specific programs and their corresponding implementation systems definitely need to be aligned. And the alignment of social protection policies for children and linkages between programs and existing systems should thus be integrated and designed in the manner that reflects, appreciates, and responds to, I suppose, these 5 aspects. 1, the multidimensional nature of poverty, vulnerability, and well-being. And I think it's important to really place an emphasis on this multidimensional nature of poverty, because if we are to understand it within that context, you would realize that we equally need a multi-dimensional or response mechanism to address these aspects of poverty. Of course, the need to build synergies and holistic reach, impacts, and sustainability. We've spoken to that. And of course, the need to also link digital systems across government departments. We cannot stress this much more. We are working on this, but some great progress has been recorded in this regard, but certainly a lot more needs to be done. I keep making the point that before COVID, we had the challenge where people could access a series of social protection mechanisms from different government departments, and we had absolutely no idea of verifying that indeed they're already getting social protection elsewhere. And I think one of the benefits that came with COVID was to really force us as government to integrate our systems much better. And this is a point that cannot be overstated. Of course, the achievement of national socioeconomic development at local and regional levels, which I think is also very important. The commitments of the National Development Plan and the SDGs also go without saying, and of course the effective and efficient achievement of these SDGs. So I thought it was important I just speak to that, those sort of high level aspect by putting just some context to this. Of course, a lot of work still needs to be done around this area of work, working with other government departments, and you know that the consultation process is quite tedious. But as I indicated, we believe that this is the right approach that we are taking insofar as the policy approach is concerned. So I think let's then go to the next slide. I didn't realize we are on this one. We can go to the next slide, and then I'll get Maureen to come in and deal with the bulk of the presentation at this point. Dr. Maureen?
Thank you very much, Linton.
Dr. Maureen, if Maureen is struggling, I'm going to ask Brenda to then start, so we don't take a lot of time, because we're struggling to hear you, Maureen. Brenda?
Apologies, DG. I had challenges with my laptop. Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Minister, Deputy Minister, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, colleagues, and everyone in the meeting. As DG has indicated, our presentation, it's on a draft policy that we've been working on since when we started with the study in 2015-2016. Why are we doing this work? We are doing this work because as a country, although we have social grants that we have been providing since 1998, we still have a number of our children who are multi-dimensionally poor. Our Gini coefficient of 0, structural inequalities hindering children's access to basic services. We also have a high vulnerability of the burden of diseases as a country. This table that I'm just reflecting here comes from a study that we just completed in 2022 that we will be launching soon as a department. The study speaks to, it talks to child poverty, reviewing child poverty, as well as the value of the child support grant. The study clearly shows that the 3 provinces with the highest child poverty in the country are KwaZulu-Natal, and it also shows Limpopo as well as the Eastern Cape. And it further reflects that, although not reflected in this slide, that African children, 61% of them, meaning 10.5 million, are poor or are living below the upper poverty line. On 37% of them, meaning 6.3 million, are ultra poor, below the food, living below the current food poverty line. And what we have known, this templates that we used followed the stats SA data that was done in 2019. So we are saying since then, because of COVID-19, the situation has gone worse. This particular slide really gives us the context in terms of why we are saying that this policy, and I think this was reflected by both Minister and DG, that we have, as a government, we have a number of policies in place that targets children. We have basic education services, we have health services, and social development, we have social grants. However, the child well-being and protection of children still remain problematic in the country. And when we started analyzing, and the study also clearly shows that when we started analyzing, we have realized the biggest gap is that our policies, as well as programs that we have as a country, are rendered in a fragmented manner, done in different departments, and there is lack of coordination. And as a result, we are seeing that 2/3 of our children live in poverty, and we are seeing that the prevalence is more in rural areas, and you can see that almost 88, just over 88% of our children face multi-dimensional poverty as compared to almost half in urban areas. And we know that we are the highest country when it comes to inequality, and inequality is reflected across gender, race, location, that we have just reflected with the rural divide that I indicated in bullet 2. And we know that violence is it's high in our country, with 1 in 3 children experiencing violence. So the picture really shows that although we have programs, we are not really meeting the broader social protection agenda. We have children's grant, social assistance policy, and as a department, we are tasked with the responsibility to develop policies to support the children. And we have been doing this since 1998, and this by providing 3 of the grants. And we know that the child support grant is the biggest grant in terms of programs that are rendered by government. And what we know is that the majority of these children live with a primary caregiver, and the majority of primary caregivers are women. And we know because of the high level of unemployment, the high level of poverty, the majority of these caregivers are also vulnerable and unemployed. So what is really the biggest problem that we are trying to address is ensuring that we address the multidimensional of vulnerability. It suggests that this approach suggests that social grant as a response to poverty and positive development are limited in achieving a holistic approach of addressing social and economic development. And we are saying one of the weaknesses or shortcomings is that social grant, especially the child support grant, is very low in terms of the amount to protect the poorest children fully from hunger, malnutrition, and stunting, especially now with a high food inflation. So we are saying linkages or integration to additional systems of care and service. It's a newly emerging developmental model that is being supported worldwide. So as a department, we are saying we really need to take advantage of this new developmental model of integrating social protection or cash transfer with broader social protection.
You are breaking,
programs.
excuse me.
We are saying that although
You
social
are breaking.
however, if combined structure, these initiatives will be more.
Hello,
Apologies.
you are breaking. Can you repeat yourself? We couldn't hear you.
Noted. Is this better now?
Yes, it's better.
Thank you so much.
Chairperson, I think she must remove the video for now, because that's what is disturbing. If she can just remove the video for now, she'll come back to it. Okay.
And we have seen.
Thank you, Minister.
It's not the
I have
robot,
removed the
we can
video
see.
now.
Okay, carry on.
Thank you. The next slide really highlights that our policy that we are putting on the table is in line with our national development plan. Because the national development plan, and I minister in her
Chair, we can't hear
opening
the
remarks
breaking.
noted or mentioned that it recognizes the value and committed holds the right-based approach, which is the model followed. It really shows where we, in the slide, you can see that we are providing, or the numbers of child support grant benefits.
Hello, Maureen. Lindsay. Brenda. Hello. Will you please assist? Hello. Maureen. Lindsay, where?
I'm trying to phone Linton to check what's the matter, Chair.
Or Brenda, or phone Brenda.
Oh, Brenda, I'll phone Brenda, Chair.
Chairperson, can you hear us now?
We lost you long ago. I don't know where are you going to start now.
Chairperson, can you hear us? I will utilize Brenda's laptop and follow the presentation from my laptop. I will start from a presentation, the slide that looked at the slide that focused on the context. Can you see it, Chair?
Okay. Okay, but we don't see it on the link. Your presentation is not visible, but we hear you. Your voice is audible enough.
Can you see the presentation now, Chair?
Yes, it's clear now, Maureen, please proceed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I will
you.
proceed. Thank you. I indicated earlier that the reason why we are proposing or putting this policy on the table is that we have various programs that addresses vulnerability and child well-being. However, these programs are rendered in a fragmented manner. And as a result, we are not realizing the full impact of social protection programs. And currently we have about 2/3 of our children living below the poverty line. And the second bullet there is also very concerning. That shows that as twice as many children living in rural areas, 88% of our children face multidimensional poverty as compared to children in urban areas. And we know that inequality is very high. We are the highest country in terms of inequality. And what we are seeing is that inequality is across gender, race, as well as location. So what are we trying to do? We are saying it's critical then that we take social grants because it's a program with the almost over 13 million of our children. Start there and ensure that our grants are well integrated into the broader social protection program. The three of the grants that we render, we know, is the child support grant, the foster child grant, and the care dependency grant. And we are saying what is most concerning as well is that the majority of these children live with a primary caregiver or a relative who in the majority of cases are women, and these caregivers are also vulnerable, especially when we look or when we focus on the high unemployment rate the country is currently battling with. So what is the real problem? Our problem is that the recent evidence shows that the multi-dimensional nature of vulnerability in the country is suggesting that social grants as a response to poverty and positive development are limited, or our programs are limited in achieving holistic social and economic development. And the biggest shortcoming is that the child support grant, which carries almost 13.2 million children, the value of that grant is very low. Currently, we know that the grant is 480. We are saying that it is too small to protect children in poor households fully from hunger, malnutrition, and stunting. And that is why you still find in this country children dying from malnutrition. So what is the solution? We are saying linkages with additional systems of care that are already rendered by government is a newly emerging developmental model, and this model is supported worldwide. So we are saying, let's take advantage of this particular model for us to assist us to realize the full benefit of social assistance. We are saying this proposal is in line with our national development plan. And as indicated by the minister, the National Development Plan recognizes the value of and commitment to integrated service linkages and upholds the right-based approach. So we are saying this policy will assist us. And remember, this is a 2030 National Development Plan. We are saying this policy will assist us in achieving some of the targets that are in our National Development Plan. This slide really just shows us the numbers of beneficiaries that we have. You can see that the 3 programs that we have, as I indicated, is the CSG, and we have about 13.2 million children receiving this grant. We have about just over 260,000 children receiving the foster child grant, and we have about 157 or just over 157 children receiving the care dependency grant. We are saying that specifically the child support grant, when it was introduced, it was acknowledged from inception or conception of this particular provision that the amount or the value of the grant could in no way meet all the needs of children. Remember, at that time, the grant was at the value of 100 rands. It was agreed that the grant has to be seen alongside a range of other programs and policies that are provided for children. Because at the beginning, the grants was only received by a few numbers of children, the department worked hard to ensure that the grant was expanded and all children up to 18 were able to receive the child support grant. We have also worked hard to ensure that orphans in the care of their relatives can easily access the child support grant. We acknowledge, however, that social grants are not a silver bullet. They cannot meet all the needs of children. For social grants to work effectively and for us to realize the full impact of social grants, it's important to integrate our grants with other services. In 2010, a decision when we extended child support grant, we attached a self-conditionality of school enrollment. DG has already indicated that the reason why a soft conditionality was attached rather than a hard conditionality is that the challenges of access cannot be, we cannot blame children, or our programs cannot be punitive, because most of access challenges come from government. So as a result, if you remember very well, those that really come with the child support grant, understand the child support grant history. When we started, we had hard conditionalities. However, we were taken to task, we were litigated, and those hard conditionalities have had to be removed. So we are saying now we have a soft conditionality, but to ensure that this conditionality is fully realized, it's important that this particular child support grant is linked with services in basic education. It will make it easier for us as government to see whether those children are able to attend school, and not only able to attend school, but they really are enrolled and on a monthly basis are able to attend school. But we do not want to end there. We want to also understand whether our children are immunized. We want to ensure that all of our children have birth registration as well as ID documentation. Remember, we have children writing matric. You would find that in some instances, when our children have to write their matric examination, they have challenges with receiving their ID documents. So in this policy, we argue that grants combined with care as well as services in the form of integrating or linking social grants to a basket of appropriate services will offer a promising means of ensuring sustainable and resilient well-being and development of children across the life cycle. This slide really shows what we actually want to do. What is our policy gap? And we have highlighted it from the introduction that Minister has made and DG, that we would want to develop a policy that integrates children. Currently, the social assistance policy or the Social Assistance Act is very silent on integration. So we want to follow a multidimensional approach that really combines cash as well as care and services to address vulnerability across the child life cycle. It fosters a development of human capital while strengthening social and economic risk management. As a department, we have already started doing this. However, we do
Chairperson, my apologies to disturb the presentation. I just wanted to say I'm leaving the platform to start the next meeting. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, DM. You are excused. Excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see in this diagram that I've just shown here, the children's grants, we want children's grants to be the center base of linking children to other services. However, we are not saying we want to only link children's grants. We are saying, let's start with children grants because already we have a database, but the intent is to really take this program towards all children and in the future also bring adult grants in the process. And that is why in the next slide, we show you a slide that really reflects the future in terms of where we want to be. We want our future of social protection overview is following a life cycle approach. So honestly, we really want to start following primary prevention, especially from teenage years, ensuring that our children are at school, ensuring that our children are receiving all other government services that they need to receive, to ensure that our children receive all other services that government are rendering. We also want to offer maternal education. So what we are trying to say is that for you to really realize the full impact of our grants, we need to start even before a birth of a child. And from there, we will have bringing in Department of Home Affairs with registration, providing different programs during early child development years, moving to teenage years, adolescence years, adult years and old age. We are not yet here. However, this is our future in the way we are seeing social protection. How do we get there? This is very important because you cannot get there if you do not have a vision. So we are saying social grants, in particular, the child support grant, the foster child grant, we would want to ensure that these grants are linked to social services at scale. And we already have, as I indicated earlier, effective care service model that are in existence. So we just want to use grants, making use of this services model and ensuring that our grants are linked through systems linkages. We are following, as I indicated, the multidimensional argument for service synergy. And the rationale starts with an understanding, as I indicated, of the multidimensional nature of vulnerability. So what do we need to do? We need to ensure that access barriers are removed. What are access barriers? Issues such as our children not having ID documents, not having birth certificates on time. We know that without a birth certificate, it becomes difficult for any child to access services. So through this policy, we might be able to address access barriers. We also need to ensure that social grants are combined with services promoting a caring relationships across government, building resilience, challenging social norms, because now there must be a paradigm shift in government. Government is used to working in silos. Departments are used to working in ensuring that they meet their own goal. But what we are saying is that with this approach, we need to work as a government. So there must be a paradigm shift in terms of how do we render social protection going forward. This particular slide really shows us if we can really integrate our social protection services, instead of realizing one goal at a time, we will realize multifold benefits. For example, if you take a program such as social grants, you can see that the social grants alone addresses poverty reduction, food security, but it does not address some of the goals that are here. You take early childhood development. Childhood development addresses food security because we know that we offer food at schools, but does not address other goals that are, or the objectives that are highlighted here. But if we follow an interdepartmental approach of service linkages, if we follow social protection system metrics, we will ensure that our beneficiaries receive multifold benefits of policy objectives or policy outcomes, which in this case will be poverty reduction, food security, human capital development, and so on. The next slide really now begins to describe this particular policy. We have already explained the purpose. We have already explained the method is moving from a silo approach to improve social welfare while recognizing the complexity and objectives of multiple players, which will be different departments, NGO sector, even the private sector. The conceptual framework is rooted in economic evaluation and institutional analysis, because now we need to ensure that different department systems are linked to really realize the full benefits of the program. And how do we want to do it? We want to start by using social assistance program to link children with all relevant services. We are saying South Africa's social security system functions from a right-based, constitutional-based approach, which importantly influences the identification of a linking pathway. And we are saying an integrated program provides or will provide a solid base for consolidating a system approach to social protection. So this policy is systems derived. So you cannot do it without linking various databases. And that is why we could not move for such a very long time, because we do not have a policy that really forces government to link. We've been trying to do it, and we've been having challenges in really linking one system to another, because as a government, we don't have a policy that really forces all of us to link our programs. What are the objectives? No, we have moved here. What is the intention? Is to integrate, I've explained, and we are saying this, the objectives will be to strengthen the impact of grants. Secondly, to improve child indicators such as education, healthcare, and the development functioning of the country's children, to better enable the realization of the identified rights based on the Constitution and various legislation of government. We are saying that access to information from an integrated platform will improve our responsiveness, because sometimes we take time to move. So if really our systems are integrated, it will improve how government responds, especially in times of shocks. The outcome, we are saying that the potential for this provides a potential for a more enhanced and sustainable socioeconomic and developmental impact, as well as breaking the intergenerational transmission of poverty. However, to be effective, remember I indicated earlier that we have a big barrier, which is barrier access to services. So we are saying for this policy to work well, our programs or services need to be in existence. They need to be accessible. Can someone mute, please?
Maureen, I've muted everyone. You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Sure. Positive.
Maureen, unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm using two laptops, so I was having a challenge here. Sorry. To be effective, it is critical that services, as I said, are not costly, are accessible. However, we are not in control of poor quality of services, but we are saying if you link, you will contribute toward the various departments improving their quality of services, because we will be able to identify challenges and provide intervention to address such challenges. What are the programs that we are looking at? Currently, we are saying we need to start with ECD, which is currently in DBE. We need to start with education. We need to start with healthcare, especially immunization. We also need to provide social support services, which are the domain of social development. And we are saying these linkages to economic opportunities, employment, transportation, and so on. Because it's so sad that you still find children not able to access their school due to transport services. So the Department of Transport also need to come on board to assist us to ensure that our children reach their schools at the right time. However, we cannot do this without consistent monitoring and evaluation. And that is why we see the need of DPME taking this particular role to assist us, because all departments report to DPME. What are our enablers? For us to move fast, we need to ensure that we have an integrated data collection and information management system. We cannot win if we don't have this in place. So as soon as the policy comes, it's important that we work hard, that we have an integrated data collection, and coordination and collaboration is critical. And also it is important to bring both NGOs as well as private business to assist with technical support. So the following slide gives a picture of where really we want to be. We want to start, where we are going to start is this column in yellow, where we say already we have children's grants rendered by DSD and SASSA. We have Department of Home Affairs rendering birth registration. We have Department of Health rendering various programs, including programs targeting pregnant mothers. We also have children enrolled at different schools. And also we have children enrolled for ECD. And what I need to highlight here, colleagues and members of portfolio, honorable members, is that you see with DBE currently, we have children are able to attend low-paying schools. We have children being supported with NSFAS after they complete their matric. But while we are missing with regard to ECD, we only have subsidy provided, but we do not have a program that ensures that we start at ECD's level, ensuring that we remove fees from childhood, early childhood centers. How do you provide a basic service like that at DBE level, at higher school level, but you miss during a critical development level of a child, which is early childhood? So we are saying because our programs are fragmented or are developed in a fragmented manner, they don't speak to one another. And I just highlighted a scenario of ECD not well subsidized or parents not well assisted. What we want to see is to move from prevention and also early intervention. And this is the column in purple. You will see here that for us to realize this, we need to our programs need to be provided in a conducive environment. So you would need other programs such as safe parks. You would need social workers and community workers providing home visit to strengthen various families. So we are saying this is a compound of services that we would need to link our social protection services with. We also want to move to the column in green that really shows our responsive responses and referral methods. So we are saying if in the future we can have a social protection program that addresses early tertiary prevention, early prevention, primary prevention, as well as early intervention, we would be able to realize the full programs, the impact of our programs. And we are saying our programs also speaks to various strategic development goals. And I've already highlighted earlier the National Development Plan, but it will address SDG 1 goals, SDG 5, SDG 10 that talks to promoting inclusion and social cohesion. It will address SDG 16 that addresses violence, and also strategic partnership, because we are bringing in private business. We are also saying NGOs also need to assist government. What are then the policy consideration? Firstly, we want to talk to public expenditure implication. The overall cost of this project could potentially be covered through one or a combination of various initiatives. Remember, we costed this particular policy in 2020. So the costing says that we can do it through reprioritization of DSD's budget, firstly, or we can do it through co-funding, with other departments such as National Treasury and all other departments rendering services. We can also seek technical support, especially with donor funding, with systems, the introduction of system linkages. We also need to consider institutional arrangement, and that is why I earlier spoke of the importance of DPME in this particular process. So we have three options, which is information sharing, and which for us, we are following an incremental change. We start with different programs at different departments, link them, and move and add more department as we continue. The second one will be to come up with a national integration social protection system that we have been working on for many years. However, we are not winning because we do not have a policy. And lastly, we are saying to deploy a new infrastructure architecture, but this one, it might be expensive because it will need a new design of a system. So we have costed the system. We are saying option 1 and 2 are easier to implement, and we can cost us about 12 million to implement. And the third option might be costly because it amounts to just over 30 million. However, we are saying if we come up with a new systems like this, we will be building up new systems which will bring new digitization platforms. So it might carry more benefits. But in terms of our fiscals, we are saying we'll rather start with the one that is option 1 and 2. So what are the key institutional arrangements that we are proposing? Firstly, there is a need for us to finalize our social protection policy and operate within the social protection policy. Secondly, implementation of an e-government system, we spoke about it. Thirdly, strengthen institutional structures and working not only nationally, but go to provincial, local, and at district level. Develop intersectoral agreements because you will need many departments to ensure that this is done. And we are saying this can be achieved in a phased-in manner. We can have dedicated social protection advisors at all levels in government, and also develop regulation, guidelines, manuals as soon as the policy is adopted and legislation informs this particular program. So you will need to change to after the policy, also change our social assistance legislation to ensure that it speaks to integration, and thereafter start developing regulations that will outline level 6. And also consider the need for linking other categories in the future, such as women, all grant adults, children in other programs that are not necessarily in the social protection program. And we are saying if you do this, you might be able at the end to exit most of our beneficiaries in the future from the social assistance program. We also need to decide on an institutional location and overall monitoring of this program. As I move towards the end, where are we? As this slide highlights all the processes that we did after conducting a study. In 2016, we drafted a policy on integrating the grant. We costed the draft policy. We drafted the policy with costed options. In 2021-22, we consulted broadly, firstly with various departments, but also with civil society beneficiaries themselves, and all of them overwhelmingly support the introduction of this particular policy. Due to the urgency of integration, we could not wait because policy development takes time. As a department, we started piloting integration by linking our beneficiaries with basic education as well as NSFAS. So the next slide will focus on the 2020 results. So this slide really shows us where we have started in terms of our methodology of linking our grants beneficiaries and using SOCPEN, LURIDs, as well as NSFAS. So currently we have followed a data match using the ID as a unique identifier We analyze various reports as provided by Department of Education and also reporting at the end. And that is why we have been releasing reports since 2015 on the integration of our grade 12 beneficiaries. So this is just a pilot to show that this works. Currently, you will see that with the class of 2020, we have seen that 85% of all 20 full-time NSS enrollments were our beneficiaries, with the inactive SGBs accounting for the larger proportion, which is 77%. So the majority of our beneficiaries or social grant beneficiaries were they were the majority in terms of the NSC enrollments for 2022. Can we move? And you can see that in terms of academic performance, Free State, our beneficiaries are doing well. We are seeing that over 75% of our beneficiaries achieved SGBs. Free State is the best performing province, followed by Northern Cape and Limpopo. Northern Cape, while Northern Cape and Limpopo have the lowest performance. So it shows that a broader intervention now need to focus on Northern Cape and in Limpopo to ensure that our children improve in terms of academic performance. We would not have been able to identify this if our program was not linked. So where are we currently? We are saying similar pass rates were observed for males and females. It's good to mention here that females perform better in the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, in Mpumalanga, and Western Cape compared to their male counterparts. So our female beneficiaries are doing better than our male beneficiaries. What are the learnings that from this particular slide? We are saying findings of this nature provides an opportunity to consolidate our existing evidence on the effects of grant and scale up in the future. We are saying evidence indicates that our grants beneficiaries are passing grade 12 with admissions into bachelor studies, diploma study, and higher certificate studies, and some beneficiaries obtaining distinction. In January, we attended a minister held a session or an event where minister was congratulating our beneficiaries that performed well in terms of their academic performance. So it really shows that linking really works. Remarkable performance of the social beneficiaries in their NSC examination attest to the positive impact of the social protection. The question is, what will happen if really we scale up and bringing all other programs in these linkages? It is gratifying to see that social grants are empowering vulnerable individuals, giving them a chance to develop their potential and to realize their personal development goals. However, we highlight that while we have made positive inroads, we still have areas of improvement in this collaboration. We are saying a policy of this nature will enable us to move faster and quicker. Global lessons of experience that we were highlighted in the study that we did in 2016 demonstrates that comprehensive and integrated responses can multiply grants' impact in strengthening inclusive social development and equitable economic growth. And promising multidimensional approaches build an integrated service delivery that support and strengthen our programs across the life cycle of a child. We are currently finalizing our consultation process. We have one province left. We are consulting in the Free State in next week. And we are following that. We will have the consultation report. We are intending to initiate the draft policy proposal or process to seek Cabinet's consideration of the policy to be published for public comments. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everyone. This brings me to the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Maureen. LinkedIn? Is LinkedIn still around? Brenda?
Chairperson, he did indicate that he would be leaving to join the other meeting and would come back after 10:30. So I assume he's not in the meeting at the moment.
Okay, is there anything that you would like to add or out of the presentation?
No, Chairperson, I think Dr. Mokoti covered it quite well. We are ready to engage with the portfolio committee on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's give over to the honorable members to interact with the presentation. I see the hand of Alex. And let's Aris, Paulnit, and Honorable Stock. Over to you, Honorable Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to you and to all honorable members and the department on the platform. And thank you to Maureen for the presentation. Chairperson, my questions and comments are as follows. I just would like to clarify the statistics on slide 1. Is that from Stats SA? You know, just to have a frame of reference where the department has gathered their stats from, or if it's the department's own internal statistics. Then, Chairperson, you know, I recall we had a briefing from SASSA a few weeks ago, and we've asked that the child support grant top-up figures be included. And I've noted once again, we are talking about grants, but the top-up, the child support grant top-up figures are not included in this presentation. So if the department can either provide it in writing, you know, the details of the top-up, how it's been received, the number of uptakes of children making use of this grant in the various provinces. And if that, because that information, I believe it's also critical when we're talking about the linking. Then, Chairperson, I'm concerned about slide 8 and slide 14, especially with reference to slide 8 being the future, you know, what we're looking for, because I'm looking at that slide and to me, there's nothing new on that slide. I'm of the understanding that all of those things are currently happening or supposed to be happening. So I would like to know if the speaker can maybe just then in the report back, go to slide 8 and maybe just highlight what in slide 8 and in slide 14 is currently not happening. Because it's my understanding that all of those things should be already be happening, and maybe bar the prenatal support. However, once again, I know there's a province who's doing prenatal support. I also know that there's NGOs like Grow Great who are already doing prenatal support. So again, it's concerning that it's presented as the future plan when slide 8 and slide 14 is supposed to be currently happening. And so it's concerning that if it's not happening. Then, Chairperson, the presentation for me is rather silent on you know, the abuse of grants and how DSD plans to improve that aspect. And, you know, Chairperson, I'll never forget during our CAB hearings, there was a teenager who, you know, stood up and said, why can't we have access to the grant? Because we would like to spend it on, you know, school items. And we also see that there's also low reporting of abuse, and also there's low prosecution when it comes to child abuse. And you often see children who are dirty and hungry in the street, but communities do nothing about it until their child is dead. So I'd just like to know where this aspect on abuse of grants would come into this policy. Then, Chairperson, the presentation for me is mostly theory and method-based. But what I think it's lacking is the practical, the how does DSD plan to do this? What are the interventions? And yes, we know interventions and programs are limited to funding and budgets, and it's also limited to, human resources, for example, social workers. And, again, I've mentioned it before, in this presentation, I'd like to know how DSD plans to include the vulnerable child who's not attending school, who's not going to the clinics, whose mother or father or family is isolated from government. How do you then plan to get that child? And I mean, unless DSD plans to visit every single child that's on a grant, I just would like to know the method and the how we are going to get all these children to access this basket of services, because we know the most vulnerable ones are those ones who are already isolated from the system. Then, Chairperson, the whole thing, if I use the example when it comes to home affairs, we know home affairs is problematic, and the question then I would like to know is what has been, for example, home affairs contribution to this policy? Has there been a commitment that, okay, they're going to prioritize learners in school for their IDs and their birth certificates? Has Home Affairs then committed on a special day of the week, we'll just be focusing on children? Because once again, if there's no actual commitment of an actual plan of how to prioritize the children in the system, then basically it's all theory. Then if I move on, on slide 17, when the department spoke about obviously the interlinking departments, and I've already used the example of Home Affairs.
That must be, Alex, that must be your last question, so as to give also others to ask questions.
But then, Chairperson, I'm going to have to come back for another round because I see it's hot. Because I've got lots more questions, Chairperson. So if I can either finish now or then I'll put my hand up after everybody else again. So then coming back to the interlinking departments, what has been the actual commitment and the buy-in for these departments? Because, Chairperson, if we can't even get a 2018 cabinet resolution to employ social workers enforced by other departments, what is the reality that the other departments are going to actually be on board with this policy? And especially when it comes to the IT infrastructure services. I mean, IT infrastructure has not been the department or government's strong suit, yet we're spending so much money. And I mean, it would need to be the same service or the same IT infrastructure that is used then across the 3 spheres of government and in other departments in order for it to, actually work. And the only way I see it actually being achieved is that if things like this and policies like this are actually incorporated in KPIs of, premiers and MECs and HODs and DGs and the like. So we'd just like to know the actual commitment of all the role players. So then, Chairperson, if you'd like, I'll stop there and then I'll put my hand up again afterwards.
Over to you, Honorable
Chair.
Aris.
Chair, I just want to come with a suggestion that maybe we should be, when we are speaking, getting the speaking right, we must speak 3 minutes, so that when others wanted to come back again, others also have managed to raise what they want to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Menjane. Honorable Aris, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Chairperson, I noted the report or the presentation, and it's a bit worrisome because currently we see that hunger in the country are reality. And my concern is that, yes, we see the 480, or right now it's 505 rand. I don't know if this is an old presentation or what, but as far as I know that the child support grant did increase. However, my concern is, and they have mentioned in the presentation that a child support grant is too little to feed a hungry child. I want to know from the department what alternative measures do they have in place for these children. Then I'm also seeing that the child support grant is being linked by children that are at schools. If we look at the reports of the Western Cape Education Department, we see that, and even children living with autism, many of these children are not in schools. Children with autism, due to the fact that there are not schools that can accommodate these children. But so then I want to know, will these children now be excluded from the child support grant just because of the fact that they are not in schools? I also don't see, because there's also issue in the country in terms of trafficking, human trafficking. I would like to see what is the department doing on that. And then there's another issue in terms of child labor, because you know what happened now is in these days with technology, our children become on this social media and TikToks and what, and this child's been exploited or abused because these children are making money on the social media, and to me it becomes child labor. And I think the department must guide us and inform us what are we as the department or social development are going to do. Then I would also like to see that even though we have programs like the CNDCs in the respective areas, that children must also be included into the CNDCs, because we know that some of these children are not in school, and many of these children are relying on the food that they get from the schools. Then I would also like to see that they are more friendly, because as Alex was making reference to the cabinet decision resolution in 2018, that, and we all know that we currently struggle with social workers, that we somehow have a more child-friendly helpline where children can report their abuse and yes, and even the abuse of the social grants. Because remember that many of these people, because we see it in the locations, that when people receive these social grants, the first thing they do, most of them, and even in the public hearings, we have heard that many of these parents abuse these grants. So we need a child-friendly helpline, as we have the shortage of social workers and these children, or even when they are abused at home, because these children never really get to social workers, and if they are in schools, in the normal ordinary schools like our schools, there are no social workers. So yes, Chair, that is what I want. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Aris. Honorable Polnit.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm very happy that first of all, good morning. I'm very happy the lady that just presented this slides now. We are talking about school-going children and everything. But the problem that we are sitting with at the very moment is these centers for children to go to is very expensive. It's over 500, 600 rand, 700 rand. It's actually more than the school fees itself. So parents are reluctant to put the children in there, even though it's the first phase for them to prepare to go to school. And because the parents cannot afford this thing, and that is the reason why they do these things as chairperson. And then the other thing everything goes around what the two previous members were talking about is the social workers. If we don't have the social workers to look at all these instances at school, feeding schemes, even the birth certificates, because this morning I got a call from a lady saying she's still waiting for her 2 children's birth certificates. The mother and father South African, they were born here, but they're having a problem because the mother was Christian and then she became Muslim. She put the children's name in the Muslim religion, and they're having a problem with that. Chairperson, the feeding schemes in the schools, it must be a national feeding scheme because every school is having a feeding scheme. Everyone is going out on tender. The tender come in. Children are getting different food. Some schools, they get cooked food. Some schools, they're getting bread and butter and jam and peanut butter. And the other schools are having a more plan for nutritional plan for the children. So that feeding scheme, it must come from government to say what must be done every day in this feeding scheme. Then the school children, Chairperson, the grants that these children are getting, it must be interlinked with the school transport, like the presenter was saying, because a lot of children are going to school being hungry, then they must still walk for more than 10 kilometers to get to school. So when they get to school, they don't have the energy for anything, and now they must wait till the poser come to have the food to eat, because in the morning when they left house, there was no food, Chairperson. So all these things is interlinked into one another. This database that you are talking about, you're talking about lots of millions of rand that this thing is going to cost. How do we know that this thing is going to be effective? Because all the departments must come together and to make sure that this thing is working so fine. If you look at social development, every time we hear the data has crashed, the data is not working, and all these things. Is this thing going to be implemented properly? Because, like I say, every week, all these things look beautiful on slides and black and white, but in practice, basically, there's nothing going on. And then I also would like to know, Chairperson, is that these social workers that is supposed to see where is the problems, they are unemployed at the very moment, Chairperson. So how are we going to do these things? Is the one department just going to talk to the other one? How are we going to know that there's an issue, there's a problem with that child or with that school where the child is attending? Abuse that is so rife. It's true what Member Aris was saying. You can see when it is such a time, the parents are more in shebeens and in pubs. And when the children are getting the money, they buy them a packet of sweets and a packet of crisps, and it's over with. So we need to, this is a very good idea that you interlink the department, because social development is the biggest department. But there must be a system of how we're going to do this, Chairperson, because otherwise it's going to be a futile exercise by just putting these things on paper. But I also would like to congratulate the department, because this whole thing that was presented now is basically coming from our manifesto. Our founding manifesto was saying that the department must have a program when the child is leaving school. It doesn't have to apply for NSFAS. It must be automatically, because it's been getting the grant all along. So I want to congratulate you for listening to the EFF and implementing our things, Chairperson, and the department. But this thing is very important, Chairperson. We cannot every time say things are good on slides, but go to practice, there's nothing going on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colnitz. Honorable Jane. Honorable Jane Mangan.
Thank you, Chair. I must also congratulate the department that they have dreamt a good dream. And then if they can follow what they have dreamt, I think we will go, the social development will go far. What I want to check, where is this model around the around our surrounding countries are being done? If not, where did we study this model? I heard that we as this country, we are the highest in violence. Did we check sometimes, because most countries that are surrounding us, if not all, most are very much poor, but I didn't hear that they've got this high violence. Have we checked, or is there any research that we can check so that we compare? Because if we don't check research, this one won't work, because most of the countries are so poor. I want to know this good policy that we are doing is going to also include the children that we are busy giving grant, the foreigners. Are they going to be included in this program, this policy that we are talking about? And then, Chairperson, I want to know, because this wants the buy-in. Is this going to work? Why I wanted to check if it's going to work is that we did have a good plan for GBV. And then this GBV, the department, they have committed themselves, but it's not flying. It's only meant only for social development and NGOs. Do we think this one wanna work? If it will work, it means the plan that the integration, there must be a political buy-in from the department. The department that is not going to buy in on this must be charged, because we can't every time and again come up with good things, good policies. At the end of the day, the burden lies only with the social development. So I think this one, if we can get buy-in of everyone, is going to work. When I say everyone, Chair, I'm including us as the community, because most of the ills that my colleagues have mentioned, it derives from us. It's us who's on the ground. It means all the departments, the oversight for all members must be up, so that us to assist that the policies that we are coming with are implementable. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable, thank you, Honorable Mangai. Honorable Masango, followed by Honorable Stock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and good morning to the department and colleagues. I just would like to thank the department for this policy document presentation. And for me, it is a very good step towards us as the department, as the department community, if I can put it that way, sort of realizing what is so devastating on the ground. And I believe that the analysis that has been presented to us is a true reflection of what is going on in terms of the gaps that are glaring on the ground, where the department's beneficiaries are concerned. And also, I like the fact that there is acknowledgement of the services not reaching certain areas and populations, because I am of the belief that the processes that are going to follow are going to be gearing towards meeting those gaps. What I would like to know, in acknowledging and appreciating the analysis that has been presented, is, do we have any work at the moment supporting this policy proposal that is happening behind the scenes with the departments that have been mentioned to be key to the realization of the objectives of the presentation. And also, what timelines are we talking about in terms of just seeing the fruit of this work that I believe, or I at least expect to be happening behind the scenes? Because as the presenter, as Dr. Maureen was presenting and outlining the some of the ills that are taking place out there, such as your stunting, such as the child abuse and all sorts of things, the malnutrition and the children that are dying, it is obviously a travesty even of justice to actually be sitting here as the social development community and talking about children that have lost their lives because of the department not doing its, or department and its partners not doing what it is supposed to do. And also the fact that there is a identification, which I believe is almost accurate, if not already, if not at all accurate, of the partners that should be involved. We are having right now in South Africa a situation where I am not sure that the relationship or the partnership between the department and the NGOs is where it should be for these objectives to be realized, or for this proposal to actually take a root when it is being implemented. So I believe that we have a resource problem in terms of human, and I believe also a financial, in that the departments that should be working with the Department of Social Development in making sure that this happens may not be at a ready stage for this to be realized. And also the relationship with the NGOs at the moment is nowhere near what we need to actually make this happen, because there are existing problems, and I believe they were outlined in one of the slides, to say those partnerships have to be intact, because this policy proposal will be as good as the fundamentals of it in terms of having everybody with their hands on deck to make sure that this happens, because it will not happen until we have that in place. And Chairperson, also, what I would like to know is that I may have missed it because the line was not well. We were in load shedding, so I kept being thrown out, I believe. What has been said about the actual resources, such as your social workers coming on board? Because each time an ill was mentioned, you can see a role to be played by a social services practitioner. And we are sitting in at the moment with a huge shortage of that. And as I said, this plan and this proposal is as good, or will be as good, as all the fundamentals being in place for it to take place. So, and I'm saying this in real, and I've not been with this department for long enough to say what I'm going to say, but for me, it felt and sounded like one of the most accurate introspection by the department. So one waits with bated breath to see that going to the ground. But I am still concerned, very concerned, in fact, by the fact that the fundamentals from the department, not even other departments, just from the department itself, that the fundamentals are not in place. And Chairperson, I would like to thank the department for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Masango. Honorable Stock.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I think let me also start by joining my colleagues in welcoming and appreciating the presentation, which was just being presented to us by the department. And I'll also, to a large extent, also appreciate the kind of work that the department are continuously doing to make sure that the services are being rendered to the ordinary people on the ground. Honorable Chairperson, as a parting shot as well, I just want to support the proposal made by Honorable Mankane that we need to find a way of trying to regulate our time allocation as members of the portfolio committee as it relates to the time slot that has been allocated for us to host the portfolio committee meeting. I'm also supporting that proposal because I mean, we are more than 10 members of the portfolio committee. So if one member of the portfolio committee is going to get unlimited airtime to raise his or her questions to the department, if all of us in the portfolio committee will end up taking that approach, then it means we'll see towards, maybe towards the end of the meeting with plus minus more than 120 questions, which are supposed to be written and responded and replied back to us as a portfolio committee by the department. So I think we're also not taking away the fact that we want to create an impression as if we don't want to hold the department accountable. We want to do our oversight as members of parliament. And it's a point that I need to emphasize from time to time that all of us, our responsibility is the same. We all want to hold the department accountable in terms of their area of work, and then also ensure that the work is being done on the ground. I think this for all of us. We are not trying to say we want now to mute or to gag members of parliament of not raising critical questions or issues to the department. But there's a time allocated for us as members of the portfolio committee. And then there are also processes in terms of how parliament work, all of us we know. So if we're going to have unlimited airtime for us to raise issues, we will not be able to do the work that we're supposed to do within the time that has been allocated to us. So hence I'm supporting that proposal, Honorable Chairperson. But I've got just few issues that I want to pose quickly to the department without wasting your time, Honorable Chair. I would like to find out that since DSD has said that they would decide on institutional location and overall monitoring and evaluation structure, how is the DSD together with the relevant stakeholders going to come up with the monitoring and evaluation tools to access the overall efficiency of linking social grants and beneficiaries with other government services? Will there be a new unit dedicated for monitoring and evaluation, or department will utilize the current MNE unit that will conduct periodic MNE of the integrated services? How will the DSD strengthen its collaboration with the different universities and research institutions to conduct the impact analysis research studies? And then also, Honorable Chairperson, in terms of the monitoring of the performance of the different NPOs, how will the DSD strengthen its mission to make sure performance contracts are signed in accordance with the legislation? Well, this contract stipulates that NPOs need to regularly report on their performance. And also, I need to indicate, Honorable Chairperson, and I think that's a point where all honorable members of parliament we will agree on this one. That is important to know that parliament also plays an important role in monitoring NPOs and ensuring that government policies are implemented, and social assistance or any other services rendered by government to children have an impact on the ground. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Those are my issues that I want to pose to the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stock. Honorable Kate Bilangu, welcome back from New York. Happy that you are with us again, knowing exactly that you have represented us well in the conference.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning, everyone. Chair, it's only three things I think that I need to talk about. Firstly, I would like to appreciate the presentation by the department. But Chair, I think one member also spoke about it, the issue of appointment of social workers or graduate social workers. I think even if we can come with a very best policy in DSD, but we know very well that to see all the programs are running well, social workers are needed most. Is there any in this proposal, anywhere where they mentioned on how are they going to appoint, or is there any way where they will be showing the intervals on how are they going to appoint these graduate social workers? Because to see social development working fully fledged, so we need human resource and mostly the social workers. Secondly, Chair, the issue of child grant. I don't know if there is a good proposal when it comes to a plan on how to channel grants to the rightful owners. Because when you check or going around, you'll hear that some of the people that are getting social grant from South Africa are not people that are residing in South Africa. Can't we find a way, or can't the department find a way on how to assess and monitor the grant? That at the end of the day, the department or government is planning to the rightful owners of this social grant. Again, the issue of misuse of grant. Can't we have a clear indication on what is it that is going to be done to the people who are found misusing social grants? Because wherever you go, people will tell you that after receiving social grant, people are not taking care of the children. Instead, they're going to use it. Some are playing cards, some are going to drink, and we'll keep on planning as a country to say we want to see our kids that are poor or coming from the poorest of the poor being taken care of by government. But at the end of the day, that is not happening. I don't know. But maybe when this policy is in place, we'll be able to see maybe changes as far as monitoring is concerned. But I'm really concerned about it, because it's like social development will keep on planning, but the money that we're spending, they account for, but not to the rightful owners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kate Vilangulu. Then let's give over to the department to answer. But my comment is that to say, when I counted from 2016 to 2023, I was counting 6 years in between. And I was saying, hey, policy is not an easy thing. Eh? Can we believe that it only came during our term? Then we have to move forward and try to implement. Really, the writing or the papers don't mean anything, but what is critical is implementation. That's my comment. I would like to hear the department what's going to say on these questions that have been asked, because the reality of the matter, monitoring on this is critical. There used to be a chief that used to confront me in asking, do you think this thing of the child support grant is worth it for us as the country to avail it? And I will debate and discuss, because I think what this chief has, unfortunately, may his soul rest in peace. You know, the thing of not monitoring it, it's really painful, because you can bring it up until 100%, but if it's being misused even by some of the parents, because recently the minister had a launch or had a meeting with the grade 12s, showing that some kids and some other parents are using this money fruitfully. And really the results were these ones of the matric pass rate of our beneficiaries. So it's right sometimes it's wrong, but it needs a thorough monitoring on how is it used. You'll get these street kids roaming around, hungry, and when you call them, you ask them, is your mother or your parents getting the child support grant? They will tell you yes. And what is it that makes you to be in the street and loitering here asking for money? He or she will tell you that my mother is always drunk, so I can't ask anything. It's better here in the street than by being at home. So the question was posed that what's going to happen to these kids that are not at school, and what's going to happen in terms of those ones that are getting the grant but are being misused. Thanks, the department, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you also to all of the members of the committee. I think from the volume of questions and comments that have been raised, we can see from the department side, of course, the request for this policy to be presented has been made several times before, and I do see from the sort of responses we are getting, the level of commitment and interest and excitement from the committee side to really engage with this policy. And I think I need to start by saying, Chairperson, and reminding the members that this is still a draft policy at this stage. So a lot of the comments and questions were about the implementation issues, which we will take into consideration in refining and finalizing the policy for approval by Cabinet. And until such time that is approved by Cabinet, it is not binding on the different departments, but we have been working in the development of the policy with all of the affected departments. There is a task team that has been in place throughout the development of the policy in order to ensure that they understand their contribution to addressing issues of child poverty in the country and the need for this coordination to be standardized across the country. So a lot of the comments are around that. How are we doing? Are we implementing these things and so on? And the slides that member Abrahams was referring to when she says that a lot of these things are already in place. Yes, they are in place as individual programs, not necessarily integrated into a continuum of care, cash and care for children. And this is what this policy is trying to do, so that it becomes mandatory rather than just a choice of individual departments to be able to participate and ensure that the same child who's getting a child support grant is also able to access a no-fee school, is also able to access additional nutrition in the school, because we accept and understand that the child support grant by itself is not sufficient to meet the food needs of a child. And also that same child is also able to access psychosocial services when they need those. And they're also able to have the necessary identification, like the ID when they turn 18 and so on, so that they can write the matric. That the same child who's also accessing the child support grant when they pass matric can also access NSFAS in order to be able to. So this is about institutionalizing the package of care and cash that children will access, and it's about creating systems that make this a seamless process for children, so that they don't have to go from pillar to post in order to access the whole package of services and cash that they need to be getting. However, we have not fully implemented that yet, because it's still just a draft policy at this stage. There's work that has happened, though, in terms of moving in that direction, which is what Dr. Mkhotsi was referring to when she talks about the interaction between the department and the Department of Basic Education, sharing the LURIDS data, which is the school, I'm being told the formal word, which is learner unit record information. So that database that the Department of Education has uses the child's identity number as a unique identifier. The SASSA stock pen data uses the same thing, the child's identity number as a unique identifier. When we therefore, in terms of making sure that children who pass matric are able to access NSFAS without going through a new application process and a new means testing process, which is administratively difficult for the child, the way that we work is that through looking at the child's identity and identifying them as a grant beneficiary on the stock pen data, we then check for their information on the LURIDS data, and they were able to say, this child is in matric and is the child that is also accessing the child support grant. Therefore, should they pass, they should then not have to go into the NSFAS system and apply, but they should qualify for the NSFAS. This is the kind of thing that you are talking about doing, basically, is about linking the different systems of government, the different programs of government, so that the child, through the use of their unique identifier, which is the ID, we can be able to track and trace that they are also able to access other services, and we'll be able to see when they are not accessing certain services. A child who's like 5 years old, for example, should have had their immunization of various things, we'll be able to check from looking at the child support grant beneficiary ID number, whether or not they have also gotten immunization. If they have not gotten immunization, you'll be able to say, here's a gap. This Department of Health, this child is not ready for polio immunization or whatever kind of immunization they have. That's the idea. But only the implementation so far that has happened, which is kind of a pilot, but it's going to continue, is that for the linkage of the matriculants to NSFAS and higher education is already in place. But the idea is that this should happen in other services too. But the key thing to reiterate is that we do not have implementation in all of these things yet. All the different departments that are supposed to provide childcare services are included in the task team that is in place to ensure that they buy in, and that they also understand what systems and mechanisms and processes they need to put in place to ensure that this idea of an integrated service for children and benefits for children, or package of services for children, is then available, and that we are able to also monitor where there are gaps where children are not getting it. And with regards to some of the more detailed questions, I'll ask Dr. Mokgotsi to answer them. And on the M&E issues also, in that for now, because we have not fully implemented the program yet, there is an M&E system that is in place, at least with regards to the NSFAS, the children who are matriculants. But we intend that this whole, the value chain of child support grant, then immunization services, then access to healthcare for children, and then access to early childhood development and so on, all of it is operating on a continuum. And we can, with the press of a button, be able to say, this child X, this is their name, this is the benefits that they are getting, this is what they are not getting that they should be getting, and be able to raise that out and say, Department XYZ, please ensure that this child with this ID number attending this school needs to also get this kind of service, because it's clear from the system that they are not reflected as accessing the services. But this is the vision that we are envisaging. We are not in place, we are not fully implementing it yet. And I think I will ask Dr. Mokgotsi to answer some of the detailed questions, and then Des will talk through some of the evaluation issues, the M&E issues that we are considering in the policy. And then some of the questions are more things that are about implementation, which we are not fully doing as yet, but we will take them into account in thinking about how to make sure that when we then plan the rollout after the policy is approved, that we put those things in place to be able to implement them. And I hand over now to Chairperson, with your approval, can I hand over to Dr. Mokgotsi to deal with the detailed questions?
Yes, you can hand over to.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to answer most of the detailed questions. And I think what is most important is that this is still a draft policy. We have not yet implemented. And a lot of questions had to do with implementations. Once the policy is adopted by government, and I indicated in one of my slides, that once the policy is adopted as government policy, we will then start the process of setting regulations, guidelines, and to address some of the concerns the implementation concerns that were raised by the committee today. However, we take note of most of the implementation issues that have been made here. So when we proceed, we will consider all of them. In terms of, and I will start with a question that was raised regarding the stats. This our own stats following analysis of the needs data as well as GHS. So it's a general household survey. We have also conducted as I said in my presentation, that we commissioned work to Children Institute to conduct a study to review child poverty as well as the value of the child support grant. We just completed that study. We are now finalizing designing the report, and we will be launching as a department the report in the near future. And once the report is launched, we will invite members of the honorable members of the committee to the launch so that we get the real findings of the report and the recommendation on addressing child poverty, because based on the study, it looks that we are regressing in terms of addressing child poverty as a country. The reason why the policy development process takes long is because of the complex nature of policy making. All of our programs, when we initiate or our policy, we start with a study. A study takes a year or 2 years, depending on the scope of the study. And this study took us a long time because you were looking at various departments, and we were also looking at the NGOs as well as work that is done outside government. So it took us almost 2 years to complete that work. And following that, you have to have the discussion paper. You also had to cause the draft policy. You also had to consult. So however, what we can commit to is that moving forward and looking at the agency of finalizing the process, we will try with all of our potential to move the process quicker. However, some of the processes are outside the department's control. Regarding the CSG top-up numbers, and I really apologize, not really reflecting in that slide that indicated the number of the child support grant. Normally we include it under the child support grant because they are also child support grant beneficiaries. However, in terms of the numbers of child support grant top-up, by the end of February, our numbers were 34,272 beneficiaries or are receiving the CSG top-up. We will respond in writing as requested, but as I indicated, it's 34,272 of children receiving the child support grant. We are working hard to going from province to province to talk to beneficiaries on this particular provision. And on the 30th of this month, we will have a radio talk show where we will be talking to the majority of our public stations on the child support grant top-up. This is one of the means of ensuring that we inform all of our beneficiaries of the processes that they need to go through to apply for child support grant top-up. In terms of abuse of grant, the question that was raised, and I can say we know that the majority of our caregivers, they use the grant in a good way. However, there is that percentage of beneficiaries that are not using the grant as they should. So as a department, acknowledging that need, we developed a booklet on basic finance to teach beneficiaries about utilizing social grants and the need for saving. We have done that and we stopped in when COVID struck, we've been going from province to province, teaching beneficiaries, and we have developed a manual, a sort of manual to teach beneficiaries on utilization of social grants. We've been going from province to province, but during COVID-19 era, we stopped that process. However, now that we are out of the disaster management era, we will proceed with that process of informing. It's a continuous process. You will never stop with this process. So depending on capacity and resources that we have, we will continuously strive to inform beneficiaries and utilizing this resource that the department has developed, a basic finance literacy book. Regarding the children of the group of children who are not already in the social grants system, we are saying and I've indicated it in one of the slides, that we will be starting with children in the social assistance program, but the intention is to open up to all other children, then move to caregivers and adults, but we will do it in a phased-in approach. We are starting with social grants beneficiaries because already we have a database of over 13 million beneficiaries. So we are saying, because already we have this database, let's start with them as we work or devise mechanisms to include all other grants that we know, all other beneficiaries or children that we know are vulnerable but are not within the social assistance program. In terms of Home Affairs, what I would want to inform the committee on is that we met with Home Affairs on several bases to address the issue of birth certificate. Currently, we are finalizing a strategy that we will be writing to Home Affairs on this particular strategy to prioritize children that do not have birth certificate. As I said, this is work outside this policy, because as a policy, the policy will be adopted, not now, but after a year, 2 years. However, we cannot leave other critical issues until the policy is finalized. So we are currently finalizing that strategy on addressing children without birth certificate, and we will be writing to Home Affairs in the near future. A question on extending the extent of buy-in, and that is why we came to this. Although we are not done with this policy, we have come to members, honorable members of the portfolio committee, to inform you on progress and to say that it's critical. We cannot do it alone as a department. A policy of this nature, you will definitely need the buy-in of all other relevant departments. And we are saying with a policy, it becomes easier to obtain that buy-in because all members of cabinet would have signed this particular policy. So unlike now, where we have to go and knock at Department of Basic Education and say, can we have a memorandum of understanding? We are working based on memorandum of understanding. Even the intervention that we have between DBE as well as NSFAS currently is based on memorandum of understanding. But once we have a policy, you'll no longer need memorandum of understanding because all departments will be bound to work, because that would be a government adopted policy. We have on a question that what is the work happening? Is there any work happening outside this particular process? I've indicated that we have already met with Home Affairs. We also have an interdepartmental task team, which involves especially departments that are in this diagram here that is in the yellow. We are focusing on them first because we are of the view that it should be in a phased-in manner. We are going to start with these ones, and the interdepartmental task team include mostly all the departments that are in yellow. However, as soon as when we scale up, we will also include other departments that are in the purple as well as in the green. It will be work in progress, the phased-in approach of bringing all other departments that are necessary. However, our view is that we should also, there's a department here that we should bring in the yellow, which is the Department of Transport, because school education, the challenge, the biggest barrier for children to attend schools on a daily basis is the issue of transportation, and it was raised by honorable members in this meeting. In terms of the value of the grant, yes, the value of the grant is still 480 until the 31st March 2023. We are currently in the process of gazetting. We have started the process of gazetting the new amounts. The new amounts will be gazetted before end of this month, and from April, then we will, the child support grant will be 500 rands, and in October, another 10 rands, then it will be 510. However, it will be starting in the new financial year. I've already spoke about the study on child poverty. Other programs, there are other issues regarding that have been mentioned on human trafficking, child labor. We appreciate these comments, and then we'll go back and see how best do we also ensure that our policy speaks to other areas that were mentioned in this particular meeting. The issue of ECD we consider as critical, and that is why it is in the yellow. Currently, ECD has moved to Department of Basic Education. When we drafted this policy, it was then in the department, in our department, but now that it has moved to Department of Education, we are going to continue to engage with them to ensure that we address the issue of early childhood development. It's a concern for us as much as honorable members of the portfolio committee. The issue of social workers, it's an issue, and we have presented on it last week when we are in this committee, that the department is continuously engaging with National Treasury to request that they assist us in terms of capacitating us with funds to ensure that we are able to employ necessary social workers. Regarding the, and I'm moving to last but two comments, the issues on any work behind the, since I have addressed it in other questions that I've raised, that we have that interdepartmental task team. We are also working on a NISPIS. There is a NISPIS committee that has been in existence since 2014-15. 2015 to be correct, 2015, where we are already working with various departments of basic education, and Des will attach that in her response, because linkages of systems are led by our M&E unit. The issue on partnership between DSD NGOs, it also forms part in one of the presentation. In one of the slides in this presentation, I highlighted that coordination is very critical, and it's DSD and department or government cannot do this particular broader policy on its own. So for us to work better, it's very critical that we improve our the way we work with NGOs, as well as the role of the private sector, especially in assisting us with technical support, especially with the issue of coordination and linkages as we move forward. The last comment has to do with monitoring and evaluation. I'm going to ask Dres to address that one. Thank you, members. Through you, Chair.
Thank you, Maureen. Over to you, whoever is given it chance.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Minister and colleagues. I'm Des from the Monitoring and Evaluation Unit. I will respond to the questions addressing the monitoring, reporting and evaluation. I think Dr. Mogotsi touched on it a bit. I will provide some historical context. Since in 2015, we received a cabinet memo which tasked the Department of Social Development to ensure that we establish a relationship with the Department of Higher Education, NSFAS, to see that poor and vulnerable children increase and in terms of having access and funding to institutions of higher learning, which also not only looked at universities, but also technical vocational colleges. With the response that we did in terms of implementing this relationship was that we then established an MOU. We drafted an MOU which included basic education, SASSA, as well as NSFAS. We also then established a steering committee and a technical task team, which then not only included basic education, SASSA, but we also included Stats SA, Home Affairs, and we also then started looking at the relationship with the Department of Health. With that work, we then did an annual report which we produced, but we not only looked at the results of the grade 12 learners, but we also then started looking at what are the profiles of children who are receiving grants and who are within the basic education system to understand what are some of their needs. So we have a profile data of grade 8 to grade 12 children. And we're also looking at an approach of starting it from ECD right up then, which will be from ECD because ECD is with basic education. So it will be ECD right up to grade 12. And we will then be able to have sort of within the educational system, have sort of a cycled approach that we know exactly what are the needs of the children. Regarding the work that we are doing on measuring the educational performance of children who are receiving not only grants, but we looked at it much broader in terms of social protection systems, because there's a number of social protection systems in terms of ensuring that there's access as well as retention of children until they can complete grade 12 or either exit where they would then go into the TVET vocation. So we also look at the sanitary dignitary program, which ensures that girl children have less absenteeism within the schooling system. We then work very closely with the Department of Women, where they then give us what is their provisional funding that they have for that program, which we then also include in the annual report. We also then look at the number of children who are receiving the school nutrition program, because it is also in terms of ensuring that there is retention and better concentration with having a good nutrition during the day. So with the National Nutrition Program, we also look in terms of what the numbers are, and we also then look in terms of what's the funding. We then link the data sets. We first start by June. We are able to say how many children within the basic education system is receiving grants by linking the LURIDS data. And then we, by end of July, August, we are able to see how many children have registered to write the National Senior Certificate. And with that data sets, we are then to look at how they perform when the children then complete the grade 12 exams, and it included, which was included in the presentation of Dr. Mogotsi. We also do another piece of empirical evidence where we look at asking post-matriculants, what are some of the challenges and what in terms of what's working and what is not working with their applications to NSFAS. and we do a case study. And with that report, we normally give it to NSFAS, where we would then able to say to them, what are some of the challenges, especially around the digital challenges children have in especially rural communities. With the kind of work that we are doing, we are trying to look at what is the throughput rates with children receiving NSFAS and who have received grants as they try to complete their higher education system. Are they completing on time? And also, what are some of the challenges that they are receiving while they're at institutions of higher learning? And one of the challenges is also around the psychosocial support. And that is one area that we are also speaking to NSFAS on. So we do have a sort of a research approach with NSFAS and basic education, where we try and see what are the challenges some of the children are experiencing and what is working and why it's working and what is not working as well. So we have a number of research and evaluation studies that we then populate into our multi-year evaluation and research plan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Department. Can we check whether are there any follow-ups since the time still allows us?
Chairperson.
Hello.
Good morning. Chairperson and members, it's Isabella speaking.
Yes.
Yes, Chair. I think I want to talk to the issues of child labor, child trafficking, and the children living and working on the street. I must start by saying we need to acknowledge as a department that we really need to communicate more on our services, but also on the critical information that needs to be that useful to our communities. Like, for example, there are quite a number of interventions and a number of important information that needs to be known by communities. I'll give example of maybe the offices, where our offices are, the numbers where in case where people are able to identify a child labor case or the issue of child trafficking. So I think we need to improve on that and maybe avoid only speaking to ourselves, having that information on the platforms that are accessible to us, but ensuring that, this information is accessed by communities. Like, for example, we need to identify strategic areas in the communities. We need to work together with the ward councillors. We need to work together with traditional tribal authorities. We need to work together, with the taxi ranks, quite a number of strategic areas that we can identify to ensure that this information is available. For example, we've got a toll-free number that needs to be raised when you identify a child labor issue, which is from labor 0872317126, and you'll find that this number is not known, by a majority of people. Even members do not know about it. So I want to acknowledge that, in those areas we need to improve, because there's a lot that the department is doing, but it's not communicated properly. Like we've got a strategy that is being driven or championed by Department of Labor, with the action plan basically for the child labor issues. And that strategy has got an action plan that is victim-centered rights approach, and it's emphasizing the participatory of everybody, including civil societies and communities, in terms of ensuring that we eradicate the issue of child labor. The child labor needs to be reported where, it will be referred, it will be dealt with by the Department of Social Development in terms of our mandate is ensuring that we protect the rights of children, because child labor in itself is a child care and protection issue. And it needs to be dealt with in terms of the Children's Act, ensuring that, the child is the issues that are surrounding the children are being identified, are being dealt with. If it's hunger, we need to ensure that there are interventions, because some children are going for child labor voluntarily so because of the circumstances that they find themselves in. There's nothing in the house, they need to provide. Others are being forced to do it. So we need to identify that. And some, they don't even have, parents, and we need to identify and ensure that, we render interventions as per that are relevant to what the circumstances that the children find themselves in, and also ensuring that if there are issues within the family, we are dealing with them for reunification and to ensure that the child does not return to the same environment. I think it's the same with the issue of child trafficking, where we also have to deal with issues of psychosocial support, trauma counseling, and also ensure that, we identify the real issues, and if a child needs to be placed in alternative care, we do that. And ensure that we leave the children with all the resources and the family that is involved. But most importantly, we need to intensify our prevention programs and make sure that they are being known, to the communities within which the children reside. And we are currently training the social service practitioners, but I think we need to also extend to the communities themselves so that they are able to identify, if we talk about child trafficking, what are the characteristics and what is it that is needed for them? And because for me, I see it, as an issue, as a societal issue, everybody must be involved in that. The children living and working on the street is basically children in need of care and protection also because of their circumstances that led them to be there. As one member has said, it might be maybe because the parents are abusing substance or they are abusing substance themselves. So we really need to ensure that these children are equipped with life skills. We do that in our child centers, and we've got some programs that are in place, but as I said, we need to communicate so that people can understand, what programs are we rendering and what is it that should be done in ensuring that, these programs that we are talking about are being accessed. And the communities, most importantly, we need to ensure that we strengthen, our partnership with communities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Isabel. Can we go to members just for a few seconds? And we still have time to. Can I give over to Alex? Make sure that you obey what has been proposed in terms of time, and we will be followed by Marie, Honorable Marie.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, if the officials can please just reiterate what does LURIT stand for again, that data set, so that I can write it down. And then Chairperson, if they can also just explain, I missed, what is the difference between active and inactive when it comes to the social grant beneficiary enrollments? What do they mean by active and what do they mean by inactive? And then Chairperson, I think, going forward when we get presentations like this, it also would be beneficial if there can be breakdowns as to, the number of children who don't pass matric. And I say that, bringing into my next point, which I'd like to know if it's included in this policy, is that what happens to the children who age out of the child support grant? Because as we know, children are often 18 in grade 10, and then the department and government is making these investments and contributions to the child throughout their life. And then when they age out of the system, the support and safety nets, I wouldn't say disappear, but is that then included in this policy? And then Chairperson, since hard conditions did not work, and it's obviously proving now that soft conditions are not working either, this committee has often spoke about incentivizing, school attendance and incentivizing clinic visits and so forth. So is incentivizing an incentive program included in this policy, or is it not? And it can be something as easy as, making sure that the children who attend school on the grant system are the ones going to the DSD annual youth camps, or going to something as simple as the movie, because, children are very easily motivated and incentivized. So is that part of the package. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Murray.
Chairperson, I just want
Thanks
to.
very much,
Chairperson, I just want to, the lady that just gave her input now. We were talking about the child labor and stuff like that. I would like to know if the department can do something, because if you go to a lot of the robots, the traffic intersections, you will see a mother sitting one side, and then she will have 3 children, and they will stand on each corner and asking for money. The children won't be in school. The traffic is going past, the police going past. There must be something in place from the department, because their children are getting SASSA grants. They are being kept out of school to go and collect money on the corner of a robot. So we need to have some sort of rule or thing to say that if a child is getting a SASSA grant, this child must be in school. If the child does not report to school, the social worker must then notify the parents that the child is not attending school. There must be something in place to keep the parent also responsible, because the child cannot receive a grant, but they're standing on the corner because the mother is having a habit of using maybe drugs or whatever. Now the child must stand and beg on behalf of the mother. So that is also something that we need to look at. That is also some sort of child labor, because the child are being coerced into it and then being told that there's no food at home, you must go and do this. But when it is time for the child to get a grant, the mother's in charge of the grant. So we need to work out something, how we're going to do that thing, because somehow it does not work. And I would like to agree with the previous member that the children that is in matric, grade 10, grade 11, grade matric, sometimes they are over 18 years old. Automatically they don't get money anymore. So they don't have anything to go buy, even a roller or a pad or something. And I'm very happy to hear they say they do have that provision for young girls of pads. And because we are talking about it, but we don't see it in action, basically, because a lot of children are still staying out of school, even though we have so many campaigns running about having a girl child that is having pads. So we also need to look at that one, how we're going to implement that one as well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Murray. Who else hand is up?
There's no one, Chair.
So there's no one. Okay, those were the follow-up questions. Department.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. I'll deal with that last question around the children who are, I think it was the last question, the children who are over 18 and what happens to them once they will fall out of the child support grant system. And then I'll ask my colleague Des to deal with the other questions. With regard to that, a couple of years ago, the department did make an attempt to get approval to extend the child support grant beyond the age of 18 in order to accommodate exactly those children who are still at school and who do not have any other means of support. Unfortunately, we did not get approval for the policy. It had financial implications that were not approved. And as a result of that, what is happening now is only that the current way in which they are able to access income support is through the SRD grant that is in place. It's only 350, it's way less than the child support grant. However, for now, that's what is available to them. And of course, there is work that we are doing underway in terms of the 350 grant to look at basic income support for everyone from the age of 18 upwards, so that this becomes a more permanent rather than the current temporary provision. But the actual work around extending the child support grant to anyone over the age of 18 was not approved, unfortunately, therefore we are unable to implement it. On the other questions, I'm going to ask Des to deal with some of them before I allow the DDG Isabella to then deal with the questions around the children on the streets.
Okay, thanks, DDG Brenda. Once again, good morning and thanks, Chairperson. Regarding the abbreviation of LURITS, it stands for Learner Unit Record Information Technical System, which is part of the digital system of basic education where they look at a number of variables so that they can have information of the learners within the schooling system. Firstly, besides an ID number, learners within the basic education system also have their own unique identifier, and they do have a unique number as well. So besides the unique number that they do have, they normally have information of the learner in terms of the name, the surname, and with the relationship that we have with DBE since 2015 was that we, as the Department of Social Development, wanted to understand how many children within the basic education system is receiving a grant, and also having information of what type of grant they are getting. So there is another field that relates to us in terms of the type of grant the child is getting, in terms of, is it a foster care grant, is it a child support grant, etc. So that information is there of each and every child then within the DBE system. On the data that we do have on the National Senior Certificate, the learners who registered for grade 12, we are able to say that there was 85% of the children who wrote the NSC 2022 exam, they were social grant beneficiaries, and it's because of this data integration that we are doing with DBE that we are able to have this valuable information. And then we are able to disaggregate to see in terms of what learners are active, in terms of and inactive. But the active and inactive is related to the child support grant, because we do know most of the children within the DBE system are beneficiaries of the child support grant. So we also want to be able to measure how are children doing who are still receiving a grant, and when they age out of the grant on the 18th birthday, what is their performance like? So we then work in terms of active. The definition is related to children who are not yet 18 and who are receiving the child support grant, and inactive, it's that when they have aged out of the child support grant on their 18th birthday. And we have also noticed that there was a remarkable difference in performance, especially between the active and inactive learners. The learners who are not yet 18 and are in grade 12, they perform much better than the learners that are over the ages of 18. And we still want to do further research with the Department of Basic Education as to understand why is that a phenomena. Okay, thanks. Isabella can then take over.
Chairperson, I don't know if Isabella is still in the meeting.
Yes.
If you can deal with the question that was the follow-up on children on the street.
I'm here, Brenda. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. The question that has been raised, I must really appreciate it and the inputs that we have been received, because this is a very concerning matter about, parents who are taking children in the street. And as member has already said, we see quite a number of such cases. However, having said that, I'm sure members are quite aware of the court ruling, where as the department, it was found that children who are begging with their parents are not children in need of care. And now with the current policy that Maureen has spoken about, not attaching conditionality to the issue of the social grants. But I want to agree with members that as the department, we really need to investigate this and see what measures can we come up with, to ensure that we deal with this matter that is very much concerning. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, department. And then let's make sure that Jane Mangan, your hand is up. Can you be the last one to make follow up? Honorable Jane.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just want to comment to say my questions are not answered. Maybe next time when they come, when we raise question, even although it's not, I think when you do a policy, you have to do a comparison and go and study somewhere. So I asked some of the questions, but none of them were answered. Thank you.
If you don't mind, remind them about your question, since we still have 5 minutes time. Honorable Mangani.
I was saying, because they said on their statement, our country is the highest in violence. I was asking, around us in SADC or whatever in the countries, is there any country that is violent like us? If not, did they have done some research that says because we are the poorest? I was just even giving example that the country that are surrounding us are so, most of them are poor. Did they think this violence is caused by the poverty? If yes, why these poorer countries doesn't have it? And then the other one I asked, where where was this study done? Comparison to say we have gone to Canada, for example, this is how we have learned from Canada, and then that's why we have developed this policy. I was asking on those bases. Thank you.
Thanks, Meche. Thank you, Meche. Isabel.
Chairperson, can I respond to Member Manganya's questions? And apologize that we didn't go into the sort of detail that she was looking for, but we can do that. To say that the work that the policy proposals that we are presenting today are informed by research. Also, we did some research into the comparative analysis of what other countries are doing. We look, for example, at Mexico, the program that they have, they're called Oportunidades, which is their grants program. We looked at the Bolsa Familia from Brazil. We looked at the Family Assistance Program from Honduras. There are several countries that we looked at: Nicaragua, Argentina, Colombia, and so on. And so all of these countries have different parts of the social protection system, which extends beyond the social grants to other services that are given to children. And we looked at the way in which they are providing these benefits. And these countries are at a similar socio-economic level as South Africa. They are also middle-income countries like ourselves. And we also looked at the issues of violence and social ills in various countries, and the interaction between that and poverty and inequality. And we found that, in fact, there's a big study that was done by the OECD looking at the interaction between poverty, inequality, and social ills. And the findings of that is that actually the most unequal countries in the world, you know that South Africa is the most unequal country in the world at the moment, but the most unequal countries in the world also have the highest levels of violence, the highest levels of substance abuse, the highest levels of violence against children, GBV, and so on. So we found that interrelationship between poverty and inequality and social ills. And we also found that those countries that have good systems of social protection, where these things are integrated, have made much greater strides in dealing with poverty than we have as South Africa. For example, the Brazilian system is excellent in that they really track the beneficiaries of their social security system. They have an integrated way in which they are able to look at the beneficiaries and keep track of what benefits they're getting and whether they're accessing it. And a country, for example, like Brazil itself, also their Bolsa Familia program it actually has a conditional grant system where they require beneficiaries of the grants to prove that they are attending school, that they are getting immunized and so on. However, from our perspective, part of the reason when we do the international comparisons, we also look at the motivation for the policy designs in other countries so that we don't take everything lock, stock and barrel because some of the things might not be contextually appropriate for South Africa. For example, the motivation in Brazil for them to require conditionalities was because of the political perspective that was in the country at the time of introducing their Bolsa Familia, which is that there was a view that the poor are lazy, the poor children do not want to attend school. And also because of the levels of poverty, a lot of the parents were also making their children to go to work with them in order to augment family income rather than taking them to school. So in order to make sure that the children do go to school, the program became conditional, that the child benefit would be given on condition that their child is going to school. However, in our country, we don't have that kind of problem. Our issue is that, in fact, the school attendance up until the age of 16 is quite high in the 90s. So we don't need really to make it conditional. Also, when you make it conditional, we also need to make sure that the conditions that you set can actually be met by government. So if you say, give a child a grant on condition that they attend healthcare services, you then have to make sure that the health services are actually available so that you don't penalize the child because government is unable to provide healthcare services. So we looked at all of those complexities of the policy before coming up with what we have. And so we have tried to learn from all of those countries in terms of what makes sense from our country and what to borrow from those countries in the systems that they are doing. We have done quite a lot of literature review. The visits happened a long time ago. We might need to do them again to go and see in terms of the systems that they now have, because those systems don't stay static. They improve over time. They gather more and more data. So as time continues, then we'd also be needing to say, where do we start as South Africa? What are we able to do from a fiscal perspective and also from a resources perspective? Like, do we have people who will insert this data and update it as things change among the children that we are providing benefits? So all of these things have to be taken into account in thinking about what kind of things can we design, but also borrowing from the different countries that I have listed. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Department. Let me just check. Seemingly, you have tried to cover up most of the questions, but it doesn't mean that we cannot ask any other question on any other day. We might also remember some
Chair, you are not audible. Chair?
To us today. For their presentation, and we wish them to have a very blessed day. You are also excused so as to I'm saying that we are, but for now, let's excuse them and thank them for their good work that they have done and leave us, and so that we are able to continue with the pink paper, which is our minutes. Otherwise, thanks ever so much, everyone who is in the meeting, stakeholders, everyone. But let's stay behind as honorable member just to finish up our 3 sets of minutes. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. I thought you are gone already. Thanks ever so much. Bye.
No, I've been here. I needed to hear what the members were saying so that we fix what we think needs to be fixed. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks ever so much. Lindy, will you please flight the minutes, the first set of minutes?
Okay, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Open other document, please. Sure. Just 1 minute, Chair. I was busy working on other documents. I've opened the documents already. Just that while I was busy, they just disappeared. Um, Thank you very much, Chair and committee members, and also I'm apologizing for the delay. The documents were prepared long time ago, just that I was busy working on other documents. So there are so many documents, so the system kicked them out. So I've managed to pull one document. Can you see, Chair? Chair, let me firstly apologize for the minutes, legacy minutes, old minutes, because I was doing my files and I've realized that omitted to include 2 minutes of November, the last time we were adopting minutes. There's only 2 minutes and the one is for the 8th of March. Profusely apologize for that omission. So, and I humbly request the committee to consider and adopt these 2 set of minutes from November. The first set, Chair, is for the 16th of November, 2022, whereby the committee was receiving a briefing from the National and Provincial Departments of Social Development on the progress made to meet the North Gauteng court deadline on 27th of November, 2022 for a foster care. The members that were present, Chair, it's you. We have member Pilangulu, we have member Manganye, we have member Stock, we have member Hlongo, and the Honorable Fikwe, who are still with us at that time, as well as member Masango, member Abrams, and then Opperman when she was our alternate. We have member Aris and member Marais, member Panamerva and member Sukas. This was a full house, Chair. Chair, there were also MECs from provinces as well as the HODs. We have member MEC from Eastern Cape, also MEC from Free State, and then we also have MEC from Gauteng, Limpopo, Northern Cape, and Northwest. And from the Western Cape, we had member Mr. McDonald, the HOD, the minister, submitted an apology for not being able to attend that meeting. We also had our full support, complementary staff for supporting your committee, Chair, consists of 5 officials. And then you welcome everyone, Chair, MECs from the provincial department, the minister and HODs as well. And then apologies were received from member Apilangul, who lost her sister-in-law, as well, Fikwe, who lost her father. We adopted the agenda, Chair, which was moved by Member Masango and then seconded by Member Stock. And then we received a briefing, Chair, from the national and provincial departments. It was a briefing where it was a consulted briefing, and then the provinces managed to put or to present their input on as per provinces. This is the copy of the presentation, can be obtained from me, and then we deliberated and expressed concern that some of the provinces did not have HODs in attendance. Despite that, the committee expressed the gratitude for the MECs that were present and honored the invitation. There then 6 provinces and HOD were present, which means there was a quorum if 6 out of 9 provinces that were present. And also, there was an issue of recurrent of backlog and extension of the foster care grants, which is a problem. And as also, they wanted to know the plan in place to address the foster care cases that would expire in December 2022. There also was issue of the child and youth care centers, whereby they said in the current, it wanted to know whether what is the new policy decision that would no longer fund the CYCC. They mentioned the issue of not funding the CYCCs. So the committee wanted to more information regarding to that. And the committee engaged robustly in this presentation. As you can see that there is almost 1 page of deliberation. Well, the provinces responded. There is a response from Gauteng, KZN, Northern Cape, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape. So, and also the National Department gave some kind of a response on issues pertaining to their responsibility. There were also 2 resolutions made by the committee on this meeting. The minister should engage the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development with regard to challenges with the courts, and the Minister of the Department of Home Affairs with regard to challenges in accessing birth certificate. These are the issues that emanated from the presentation, which the committee made resolutions on. Also, they said that the provinces should provide the committee in writing the projections of the number of foster care orders that would expire each month from 1st December 2022 to the 1st December 2023. So that are the proceedings that were captured on that particular meeting, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lindy. That was a very, very good meeting that put us on the lighter note to know what is it that is taking place in provinces. Thank you. Let's get someone who adopts the minutes as a true reflection.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's Member Shongo. I adopt the minutes as a true reflection of transparency.
Thank you, Honorable Shongo. Any seconder to these minutes?
Chairperson, it's Bridget. I would like to second the minutes as the true reflection of the meeting that took place. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Masango. Yeah, I think they are also. Lindy, let's move to the second set of minutes. Minutes have been adopted and by Honorable Mshongo and seconded by Honorable Masango.
On this meeting, we received 2 presentations, one from the Solidarity on concerns about matters relating to child welfare and the functioning of the Department of Social Development. In the same meeting, the committee received a presentation from the department on the annual report on the implementation of the National Plan of Action for Children. Members that were present, you Chair, Member Pelangulu, Member Mangwanye, Member Stock, Member Hlongo, Member Mfikwe, Member Masango, Member Abrams, Member Aparman, Member Iris, Member Mare, Member Fada Merve, Member Sukers, and we received, and also Member Priet from the Freedom Front Plus. And we received, we had a departmental officials in attendance led by Tsunu as the acting DG and the support staff from your committee, Chair. You welcome everyone and department officials and stakeholders in presence. Apologies were received from members, Minister Zulu, who was unable to attend due to a cabinet meeting which took place at the same time of the meeting. The agenda was tabled before the committee for adoption, whereby Ms. Sukar's move for adoption, which was seconded by Member Masango, and then the agenda was adopted. Chair, the Solidarity presented their briefing, expressing their concerns about matters relating to child welfare and functioning of department. It was a long presentation with the research work that they presented to the committee, and then the committee proceeded to receive a response from the department in responding to what has been presented by Solidarity. And thereafter, we also deliberated on the presentation, on the board presentation, and then the committee highlighted the issues that it had raised with the department on a number of occasions. Most of the issues that were also raised by stakeholders during public hearings on the Children Amendment Bill. Some of the issues related to the re-registration of children homes, which requires the organization to make sure that staff undergoes training. So this is amongst other issues that were raised by the committee during that. And also the committee wanted to know the progress made with National Treasury with regard to the funding for employment of social workers. As you know, this is the challenge of shortage of social workers. And also the committee wanted to know the department's view on the skills audit within the department. So the committee engaged robustly in this meeting, Chair. Also, the responses, the department responded onto the non-payment of NPOs, to the social profession support services, and also to the research work conducted by the council. The council was also, social workers was also present in this meeting, Chair, and then they made some input. Was also the solidarity responses as well, Chair. We received a briefing from the on the annual report on the implementation, Chair, of the National Plan of Action for Children, which was presented, Chair, by Mr. Mkunu, the acting DG, and also the committee deliberated on this, Chair. No, because of the time, the committee didn't deliberate much on this, Chair. So the resolution that were taken during this meeting, sorry, my case, sorry, was that the members to forward questions on the presentation of the country report for action plan to the committee secretary to forward them to the department. The department responses to presented to the meeting on the next day. Also, the original agenda for the 30th to be changed to a joint meeting with the Standing Committee on Health and Social Services to consider the names of recommended. I think we also adopted the minutes for this day, whereby we had a joint meeting with the select committee, where the committee considered the names of members to be in the Tribunal of Appeals, Chair. So those are the recommendations, resolutions made by the committee, and then the meeting adjourned at 1:30. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Lindy. So these minutes a little bit stay, and we have even moved from, in terms of the resolution that we took, we passed the names of the tribunal, but we have to adopt them and second them. Can I get someone from the honorable members? Honorable Kate?
Thank you, Chair. I move for the adoption of the minutes as the true reflection of what transpired on that particular day on a meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vilankulu. Can I get a hand to second these minutes as true reflection, old as they are?
You.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to second the adoption by Honorable Blanco.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ste. Can we go to the last set of minutes? Those ones, I think they are still fresh. They are of the 8th March. Lindy?
Sorry, Chair. Okay. Chair, this is the meeting of the 8th of March. The committee received the responses from the 3 departments, DPE, Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, also from the DSD. And then at the same time, the committee was scheduled to receive a briefing by the DSD on its action plan on the employment of social workers and sector strategy on the employment of all social workers. This item was deferred due to time constraints. And then upon the inquiry, the department indicated that this agenda item will also be presented next week in our program of the workshop, Chair. Members that were present: Member Mvana, Stock, Hlongo, Manganye, Bilankulu, Member Masango, Abrams, Member Iris, Member Marais, Member Fanamerve. We receive an apology from Member Sukars, and then we had a member Nechipale, who was leading the delegation with the members from the department, and then we also have a representative from SASA and DPE, as well as from the Department of Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities. So we have your own staff members that were present, and then we've received an apology from a member Sukars, and the minister as well was unable to attend, and the ADG, they were both out of the country, and then Mr. Nechipala was leading the delegation. And the agenda was adopted, was by Member Manganye, who moved for adoption, which was seconded by Member Hlongo, and then they adopted with amendment to include the minister's opening remarks in all the agenda items. And then there were 4 sets of minutes that were scheduled for adoption: 14th, 19th, 26th, and 9th of October. And then Chair will receive responses from the DPE, as well as from the DSD, as well as from the Department of Youth, and from the Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities, Chair. And then we deliberated further on the responses received. And then the committee emphasized of the need of awareness campaigns on autism, because there is lack of understanding by communities and families. Many of these children are not attending school, and they are denying them of basic rights. There's serious problem with scholar transport, as children go for months without school. The clarity on Limpopo State's Chair, that shows that I'm not sure of the number of catering for 18,000 children. That raises its possibility of overcrowding. Chair, the resolution taken was that the SASA must forward a report on what is classified a permanent and temporary disability, and what doesn't classify a disability with regard to disability grant. Then also the committee advised DPE to look into the matter of scholar transport for children with special needs who have to attend mainstream schools, because of schools for children with special needs are not accessible at not in many towns. The committee deferred agenda item on the briefing of DSD on the employment of social service professions. The committee secretary to identify another date to consider this item. So the meeting adjourned at 12:30 on this day, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Lindy. Can we move the minutes of the 8th March 2023? These ones are fresh. Honorable.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Honorable. Yes, Honorable Massa.
Yes, I would like to move for the adoption of the minutes of the 23rd of the, sorry, wrong date.
It's 8th March.
Of the 8th of March 2023 as the true reflection of the deliberations that went through the portfolio committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Masango. Honorable Manganye.
Yes, I'm seconding the minutes of the 8th Chair as the true reflection, as the Honorable Masango has.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Jane. Honorable Manganye is seconding the minutes. I think after that 8th, we had meetings. I don't think there are matters arising out of this. If there are any, they would have been covered by the following meeting after that 8th. Today is the 22nd. Thank you very much, honorable members. You were so good. You obeyed on what was proposed by Honorable Manganye and seconded by Honorable Stock to at least be conscious of the time and give all of us an opportunity to pose questions. And you gave the department enough time to respond to our questions. You are cute. stay as you are, and the meeting has adjourned. Those that are supposed to rush for the bus must do that. Those are supposed to drive must drive safely to the sitting. Thanks ever so much. The meeting has adjourned.